Okay, I'm here and looking at a Lucid Air Touring compared to my Model S Plaid. Now, this comparison is not going to compare the relative acceleration of the cars that much because, well, the Plaid is definitely faster than the mid-range Lucid. But looking at the cars, it's actually kind of funny how similar they are. Certainly trim differences. The Lucid clearly has better grasp of panel gaps, more interesting styling. You can see the Tesla's gaps are pretty huge, not very even. Lucids are tighter. There are a couple that are maybe not Mercedes or BMW quality, like a little bit of misalignment with this one, but it's nothing like the Tesla, which you can roll a marble through. They're about the same size car also. Lucid's clearly a more modern design. I might have to actually like the Tesla's design a little more, but I certainly give the Lucid a nod for being a more modern looking car. Tire wise, on my car, I have the 255 45 19 P0s with the 285, I want to say. Yeah, 285 40 19 in the rear. I do have the efficiency wheel covers on. The Lucid is on 20-inch wheels, also with covers. The Lucid has the Michelin Pilot Sport EV tires, which are probably technically a class below, but given the P0 grips, they should be fairly comparable in terms of tire. All right, well, we're driving the Lucid Touring first. Moiz is gonna take a drive at his car, and then I'll take a turn at the wheel. Moiz just picked up this car yesterday, so good thing the electric cars don't require a break-in. First impressions are, wow, the interior materials are really nice. Stitching is well done. It's certainly a more interesting place to be in than the Tesla. Door carve-outs make the cabin feel really spacious. The glass roof is actually pretty similar to the Model X, but nice. And the materials are nice. The seat sits up a little bit higher than the Tesla, I think, off the floor.
Yeah, it doesn't go super low. One thing, coming out of a Model 3 that I've driven for many years is, I think it's a completely different thing. It's very, I think it's closer to a Model S. I think in here you actually have real leather. It's not vinyl.
Yeah, the wood trim feels like it's integrated to the cabin instead of just being tacked on. There's actual buttons for the temp controls, which is nice. Multiple screens. It's definitely quick. I don't expect this car to be faster than the Plaid, but...
No, I don't think there's any comparison. I think this one is on par with the long range in terms of like the quarter-mile acceleration and 0 to 60.
And it undercuts the long range a little bit, right? Cost-wise now, right?
In terms of like the MSRP, it's still higher, but I think they have a bunch of discounts going on right now. So I think once you add all that stuff in, it's right about the same price as a long range.
Okay. But much nicer inside.
Yeah.
The color choices are a little weird. They have the black leather up top, and then the tan carpet, and then tan rear seats.
Yeah, they're, I think the story that they gave behind that was that they want the front to feel like a sporty cockpit, whereas like the rear is like luxury for, the passengers. but it's ironic because they just released the Gravity and it's the same color all throughout, so they just gave up on that, which I mean makes sense. It's kind of weird.
Yeah. Because I want my passengers to be in a different car than I'm driving. Yeah, it's funny, the texture on the dash in the sunlight actually looks more like plastic than leather, although it is leather. The pebbled look is what everyone copies.
So this is actually interesting. So the Touring, this area right here up on the dash is like a non-Napa leather leather. So the seats are all Napa leather, but this area, and I think on the door cards, is like a one grade lower leather. Whereas in the Grand Touring, this is all Alcantara.
Oh, I see. That's how they make the distinction. We went and drove a Grand Touring about a month ago or so, and I was really unimpressed with the Grand Touring. And this car feels like it's a lot better screwed together, more coherent. It actually feels quicker from the passenger seat.
For some reason, this one just feels more immediate. Like the responsiveness, the throttle response, the steering, like all the inputs are just feel more heightened.
Wow.
Compared to the Grand Touring. I mean, I'm sure the Plaid is in a completely different zip code, but
I mean, this car is definitely quicker than a 5,000-pound sedan should be.
Yeah, it's funny actually. This one, the Touring, I think, weighs very close to the Plaid. I think this one comes in around like 4,900. And the Plaid is what, 48?
Yeah. I definitely hear more kind of gear whine, and you can hear kind of the powertrain a bit more, which is kind of odd for an electric car.
The Model 3 has a decent amount of whine. I don't know if the Model S has insulated some of that.
Yeah, the Model S probably just insulates it a bit more. Damping wise, I do feel like this car might be a little better damped than the Plaid, but we'll drive on the same road and see. And how does this compare to the Model 3?
So it's interesting. I mean, I think the steering ratio is actually pretty fast from at least from behind the wheel for me. Like it feels very similar to the Model 3 in terms of just like the way that it just, you don't have to turn the wheel much to get an input out of it.
Yeah. The Model 3 definitely has a nice go-karty feel to it, and
it's just like a really heavy go-kart. it's kind of the way I'm kind of feeling. At least one day,
Yeah. And we are driving this on a really twisty road. This is more of a Miata-sized road than a... I mean, this definitely goes around corners. It's got a decent amount of grip. It might have more grip than my P0s on the Plaid, but it could also be the passenger seat effect.
It could also be a slow driver effect.
Yeah, I don't know who thought light brown floor mats were a good idea. Let's see, steering wheel... Oh, right here.
It's interesting, like Rivian almost entirely copied Tesla in their UI, like the way that the steering wheel stuff works, everything, like it's from the buttons on the wheel, right? And these guys are like, no, we're gonna do everything differently. The vents are mechanical versus Rivian that also copied Tesla there.
Yeah, I definitely feel like, well, it feels like there's less headroom in this car, but there's actually a good amount of room above my head, but I do notice this pillar is much closer to my head than the Tesla.
Yeah, the roofline is pretty low.
The roofline is very low. I didn't bonk my head on it though this time, which was a definite improvement. Oh yeah, and stocks. Stocks are a great invention and should be on cars rather than not. I wish the steering wheel came out a little bit closer to me.
Is that as far as it comes out?
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, the A-pillar blind spots are pretty big compared to the Tesla. The front of the car, I feel like the windshield's further forward, so the corners are a little bit harder to see, although it does make the car feel shorter up front. Like we're further forward in the chassis than in the Tesla. Regen braking feels as strong, or maybe even stronger than the Tesla. Yeah, this actually feels... Alright, I think this car does handle a little better than the Plaid, especially in these low-speed corners at least. We're giving the dampers a workout on this super bumpy road. I don't find the driving position as comfortable as the Tesla, but it's also just one of the things I'm reacting to is the seat not going down as far. My gigantic head being up against this pillar. The view forward is fine, but my left view out the A-pillar is certainly blocked a little bit. The right A-pillar doesn't bug me as much, although it is also large.
They are big, yeah. I think I was trying to go inside a parking garage, and I was trying to look out to see like where your front wheel meets the curb. You can't see it at all.
Although the Lucid does have surround view, something that the Tesla is sorely lacking for parking such a large car. Lucid seems to have put a little more thought into the way the gas pedal feels too. There's a little bit more adjustability to the gas pedal, so I can roll onto the throttle smoother.
Is the Plaid very like instantaneous?
The Plaid's a little jerky if you're not careful.
I'm surprised that with 1,000 horsepower they would make it so it like that.
Yeah, I do think the region braking on this car is a little stronger by default than the Plaid is also. The brake pedal feels like it has a little bit of play at the top of the travel.
Yeah, to be honest, I haven't even used the brake pedal that much. I think the region is just pretty strong in this one.
Yeah. It is nice the car has CarPlay and all the modern amenities that Tesla just decides you should do without.
Yeah, I mean, the CarPlay integration is kind of weird because the screen, which you probably can't see, is kind of oddly shaped. So what you end up seeing is like a little rectangle in the middle of this whole screen.
Oh, that's kind of
it's not ideal. Feels like you've remote mirrored something to the screen.
From a damping perspective, the Grand Touring we drove, and maybe it was just the hard demonstrator miles that were on the car, felt like it wasn't damped nearly as well as the Plaid, and that it felt like a bigger car just because it was moving around a decent amount.
Yeah, I had the same impression from the GT. Like, I'm kind of surprised that there's such a difference. At least for me, it just feels like a big difference between the GT and this one, even though 8-9% weight shouldn't. I wouldn't expect it to feel very different, but
yeah,
it could be also just the way it's tuned. It may be that the throttle is a little bit more sharp in the Touring, whereas the GT I think is delayed a little bit. I think that one also builds power later in the speed band, so down low it's a little slow to actually, you feel more of like a delay as it kind of builds power.
When we drove the Grand Touring, we found out that the Grand Touring was actually speed limited to I think 82 or 83 miles an hour, and the power doesn't actually come on until 86 or 87. So bizarrely, we were certainly feeling that car was a slug, relatively.
It was weird. It's weird that they would do that on their demo cars, right? It's like, how are you going to sell the faster model when you can't actually experience the fast? Yeah,
that was definitely odd. This glass roof, it's kind of funky how the sun visors look like they just float in the middle of the air.
I think the Model X's are kind of the same, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you think the transition to this car from a normal, like typically controlled gas car is going to be easier? The control layouts are simpler. You don't have the funky no-stalk BS that the Tesla has. Whoever thought putting blinkers on the steering wheel on the same side was not particularly smart.
I noticed that they actually, it's not entirely changed, but like on the Cybertruck, they got rid of are they haptic in the Model S?
Yeah.
And they're actually physical buttons now.
Physical buttons.
And the horn, they moved it back to the middle.
Yeah, that was the dumbest thing. I can't tell you how many times I've pounded on the airbag to no avail because they move in the Tesla. The horn button is actually on the right side, and it's tiny. And technically, if you cover all the buttons on the right side, it will honk. But I found that to be a fairly unintuitive process, for sure.
How often do you randomly, while turning the wheel, accidentally hit that button?
Well, I will say I've never accidentally honked at somebody, but I have not honked at somebody that I intended to honk at. Yeah, there's certainly a good amount of isolation from the outside noise. Like, I can't hear any of the cars or things around us.
So one interesting thing is with the drive modes here, they're locked. So when you're in the fastest drive mode, Sprint, you have the stiffest suspension and everything. So you can't individually configure, soft suspension and fast throttle or whatnot. I think in the Tesla you can.
Yep, but there are no predefined modes in the Tesla either.
Yeah.
So if I want to switch to the aggressive throttle and the aggressive suspension, there's actually two different screens that I have to go to.
Yeah, but I mean, for whatever reason, I don't think that the stiffness in this mode is intolerable.
No,
I mean, it actually was just fine on those bumpy, twisty roads.
Yeah. I could see maybe that the car could absorb those the railroad tracks a little bit better, but it wasn't objectionable at all. Does it default to this one pedal driving mode where it'll also come to a stop by itself?
So this is the default setting, but it has the same settings like the Tesla, where you can set it to you can change it to a lower regen, and then you can also change it to roll or creep.
Got it.
So you have the exact same options. But I think by default it's just on hold.
I do like that they have the physical climate control buttons. This seems like a really good compromise. The Tesla has the at the very bottom of the screen to adjust the climate control, and it's really easy to not click what you want.
There are a couple of things that I found kind of annoying is if you want to put on your heated seats, for example, you have to first go into this menu and then click on it. So like if you're anywhere else, like if you're, you know, adjusting, or you're inputting a nav, or you have this screen up, and you know, it's like multiple clicks to like get back here and then put your heated steering wheel. Or I think in the Tesla you have to click on climate to put your steering wheel heat on. But not the seats.
Yeah, the Tesla actually has a automatic mode for both the heated seats and the heated steering wheel that it works pretty well. I use heated seats hotter than you can set the Tesla for automatic, but
right now we're at like 54, 55. Say 57 decibels at 40 miles per hour.
Okay.
30, 39 miles an hour.
This car is definitely quick. It does accelerate more like a long-range Model S than a Plaid. Position-wise, I can't say that I'm as fond of this as I am of the Plaid. The seat is up a little bit too high from a hip point perspective, and the lumbar support is not enough for my crappy old man back. And the steering wheel just doesn't. It comes up at kind of a funky angle. So
I think the steering wheel is a little big too, compared to, at least to the Model 3. It's a big steering wheel. I don't know if the Model S uses the same.
No, the Model S steering wheel is huge.
Oh.
I think the steering wheel is actually smaller than the Plaid's wheel. It's going to feel like a pizza pan to you. I think the throttle is easier to modulate. This car is easier to be smooth in. The Tesla's not bad about that, but it is. I think the Lucid does have a better damped feel to it. I'm going to switch into smooth mode over some of these bumps. It's definitely easier to quickly switch modes too with that screen. The mode switching is fairly large on that. Yeah, and ride quality wise, I can see that does make a decent difference.
Yeah, the only annoying thing is I think if you're in smooth, you're actually power limited as well. So you can't have full power and smooth and the soft suspension.
Oh man, seems like they could automatically adjust that.
Yeah, maybe in an update.
Yeah. I do see how you wouldn't have to use the brake pedal in this, even more so than the Tesla.
Yeah.
The one pedal driving mode in the Tesla, you have to plan a little bit because the deceleration doesn't have as high a regen braking rate. Whereas this, I don't even have to think about it. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the car ages as well. My Tesla has 10,000 miles on it. It certainly rattles and squeaks more than this car does. Although I will say that the demonstrator we drove, which admittedly had a bunch of really hard miles on it, made more noise and felt a lot worse build quality wise than the Tesla.
Right now, I don't think there's a single rattle, but yeah, that changes pretty quickly.
I get a little touch of wind noise from the window here. Yeah, the Lucid definitely feels like it goes over these speed bumps more gracefully than the Tesla does too. And admittedly, these speed bumps aren't very harsh. Take a drive in the Plaid. All right, we're now here in the Model S Plaid. Clearly inferior materials and inferior design. There's a lot less put into this. The A-pillars are definitely smaller, less of a blind spot, although it's not like these A-pillars are small. They're just further away from my head.
They are pretty big. I think these door cards don't go out quite as much, so you can actually see around this area a little bit better. Okay, reverse. How do we reverse it?
On the screen. Yeah, Tesla doing away with stalks was just dumb. Makes the car really unintuitive to drive.
Well, this is my first time driving a Plaid.
Awesome.
First notice is that the seat doesn't work. I guess we know we're in a Tesla.
Yep.
So drive us again here.
Yep. Push forward. But yeah, see what I mean about the throttle? It's a lot more.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's harder to be smooth in this car.
Little turn here.
This is my 2023 Model S Plaid. It has about 11,000 miles on it. I have to say that after Tesla worked on it, it's much less squeaky and rattly than it was. To Tesla's credit, they did fix a bunch of the squeaks and rattles that the car had, but it's still more rattly than the Lucid. Both cars are pretty quiet. I mean, at this speed, they're pretty well isolated from the outside world. The steering in the Plaid feels a decent amount slower too, from a ratio perspective.
Yeah, I think that's pretty kind of noticeable. It's not too bad.
Yeah, it's not a slow rack, but it's not as fast as the Lucid. The steering wheel, I guess the steering wheel is not quite as big as I was thinking. It's about the same size as the Lucid.
Yeah,
just a more conventional design.
It's just a circle, not an oval.
Yeah, the ride feels busier, especially comparing to the smooth mode in the Lucid. It's a little more head jostling and car moving around. It's not horribly objectionable.
What mode is this one in?
This is in the ride comfort wise is one step away from full soft, and the handling is set to full sport. The adaptive suspension dampening is set to advanced. So I don't know how that compares.
You switch between different modes when you're in.
No, there's not an easy way to switch between the modes, so I just leave it in this one, the full Plaid acceleration and the suspension mode.
Oh, okay, that's brutal.
This car is definitely fast from the straight line. A good amount faster than the Lucid, that's for sure. Ooh. You know, the 2021 redesign of the Model S certainly made the interior nicer. The door cards look relatively modern. The trim looks like it fits and is screwed together decently well. It kind of fits. It mostly meets up and looks all right. It's definitely better than the early Model S. The early Model S really felt like, hey, look what I built in the garage kind of feel to it. But it's not nearly as nice or as luxurious as the Lucid was inside.
Yeah, it's very kind of monotone texture-wise, and I mean, it has some carbon fiber trim.
Yep.
Between that and like the softer black
Vinyl. Yeah, this is nowhere near leather on the Plaid. And there are interior options that give you a little bit more color, but it's just either white seats or the tan seats. Neither of which feel like they have as nice a leather as the Lucid.
Yeah, the regen braking is like way less. I'm surprised. Tesla, I mean, they were probably one of the first to implement like a good regen.
Yeah. Happy with the one pedal driving in the Tesla until I drove a Lucid. Now I think I actually prefer the Lucid's one pedal.
A little more road noise. So I should really.
I agree. There is more road noise, a little less isolation from the outside world.
And hear a little bit of tire roar.
Yep.
As you get up.
Way less gear noise though. There's
yeah, you're right.
The drivetrain in the Plaid is almost silent. And yeah, the climate control being at the bottom of the screen here that you can't see is such a pain. It's very, very difficult to adjust when you're actually moving. Being able to flip the temperature up and down quickly on the Lucid is pretty nice with the dedicated buttons.
Ooh! It's a little bit too fast for this road, I guess. Holding itself together pretty well though. It doesn't feel like a heavy car, like a 5,000-pound car either. I think
the damping on the refreshed Model S is definitely better. My 2018 P100D was not fun at all on this road. I feel like you could use a little bit more rebound, like right there over those bigger bumps. If a little bit more.
It's a little bouncier.
Yep.
Yeah. But it might have a little bit less body roll, I think.
I think so too.
You have to turn the wheel a lot more.
Yep. Yeah, the steering ratio in the Plaid is certainly slower.
I can imagine this would be a real pain with the yoke.
Turn in perspective, it feels like the Tesla doesn't quite turn in as sharply. but then the mid-corner damping is a little better.
Yeah, definitely got a little bit of like a bounce.
Yep. The Tesla's body control, at least from a roll perspective, feels a bit more confidence inspiring. First impressions getting back into the Plaid is, wow, I really miss the surround view on the Lucid, that's for sure. And the driving position, for me at least, is quite a bit better in the Plaid. I feel like I can sit a bit more upright with the steering wheel closer to me. That works better for my funky body shape. The turn-in is definitely slower in the Plaid, which makes it feel like a bigger car. It wobbles a little bit more on turn-in than the Lucid does, but
busier over some of these
yeah,
like bumpier roads.
It definitely doesn't absorb bumps as well either, but it doesn't roll as much, and I think it's a little more confidence-inspiring in corners.
I think on some of the smoother parts, you can push it a little bit harder.
Yep. Yeah, and it doesn't deal with the bumps as well. I did have the 21-inch wheels on this car with the Pilot Sport 4S, and I know that there are more aggressive wheel and tire combinations for the Lucid too. It'd be interesting to compare those, but we're dealing with what we have. I feel like the Tesla did a little better over that big bump, although it's busier over the section right after it. The Lucid might have just touched the bump stops when it came over the really big one, but then the smaller bumps afterward upset the Tesla more. That creak drives me nuts. Yeah, I don't know if you can hear that squeak on the video, but there's a pretty loud creak coming from the passenger side right of the car. It was a squeak, and they improved it to a creak. Yeah, I definitely remember feeling that bump a lot less than the Lucid, even on this different suspension setting.
Yeah, when you hit that bump, I heard a squeak this time. There's something else in there. The steering weight, I think, is pretty similar. I can't say that this one is heavier or lighter. It's pretty similar.
Neither car has much in terms of steering feel.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell what the front wheels are doing based on the feedback coming through the wheel, which is disappointing but not surprising in this heavy of a car with electric steering. I know that most people don't buy 5,000-pound electric cars as sports cars, but they're surprisingly fun to drive. Both of these cars are surprisingly fun to drive for the size of car they are and the amount they weigh on roads. I mean, a lot of it has to do with the batteries being down low and the weight being concentrated lower than they would on a conventionally heavy gas car. Top end Lucid, the Sapphire has an air suspension too also, right? The air springs at least?
Numbers on that one for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I'm certainly having to turn the wheel more. The Lucid it gave it definitely at lower speeds and lower percentages of the maximum cornering ability. The Lucid felt more agile just because the steering was so much quicker.
That's one thing I liked about the Model 3 is how kind of chuckable and nimble it feels because of the fast steering.
Yep.
Like, of course, if you're in in mountain roads or you're trying to go fast, then you're at the mercy of your grip, but and the weight. But
yep.
But just for around town cruising, trying to zip between traffic, the fast steering actually adds a lot of fun, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, visibility-wise, I prefer the Tesla's view. You can tell a little bit better where the corners of the front corners of the car are because you can sort of see the hood, and the A-pillars block less of my view, and this pillar is actually a decent amount further from my head. I haven't bonked it yet, whereas I bonked it a couple of times in the Lucid. It does feel surprisingly less modern than the Lucid because of this huge bar here that separates the windshield from the roof, the glass roof. Whereas the Lucid, having that glass roof does feel more open. I know the base model. What was the base model that we sat in called?
The base model is called the Pure.
The Pure. Yeah, the Pure has the steel roof and does not have the option to get the glass roof.
Right.
Whereas the Model S comes standard with it, for better or for worse.
So it's interesting, for 2024, Lucid has kind of gone to
See, this is where I need to honk. I couldn't find the horn button. The guy, I think we sat at a green light for a while because of that. But certainly, this is a space where the Tesla, there's no comparison acceleration-wise, but we knew that coming in. Yeah, there does seem to be a little more tire noise in this car compared to the Lucid. And let's see what Moiz's Apple Watch says.
Going faster than we were then. But...
Okay. Well, we can check it on the same road in a minute. When we went over the train tracks in the Lucid stiffer suspension mode, oh wow, that really that was way worse than the Tesla ride's way worse over railroad tracks than the Lucid did.
That one you heard everything.
Yeah, and the ride is definitely just busier. Head's moving around a bunch more. The suspension doesn't isolate as well as the Lucid. The Lucid definitely feels much more like a luxury car than this car does. The one pedal driving, the regen braking on this car is turned up as high as it goes, as far as I know.
It might not even be customizable anymore. I think they might have gotten rid of that.
Well, I'll be darned. Yeah, looks like they did.
Just one way.
What does the DV say?
57 at 33 miles an hour.
But the Tesla is definitely louder than it's objectively louder as well as sounding.
I'd say it seems to be about maybe 3 dB louder.
Okay. And because decibels are a logarithmic scale, that's actually quite a bit.
Oh, that hurts my stomach.
I mean, the Lucid's not a slow car by any means. It's not slow.
Yeah.
But
that is like, I think these days, like a 3-second 0 to 60 is almost like normal for an electric car. Like,
man, are we spoiled. The crazy thing about these electric cars having this much power is that I can't think of a 1,000 horsepower gas-powered car that's this controllable and this easily usable. Can't think of an 800 horsepower gas car that's...
I mean, only things I can think of are like, your Hellcats and stuff, but those are not controllable in this way either.
If you stomp on a Hellcat from a stoplight, you certainly don't just go. I don't know if I can tell a difference.
It's still kind of bouncy.
Yeah. Pretty head tossy and bouncy. The Lucid was way smoother over those train tracks too. We can't talk to the longevity of the Lucid, but if you want a more luxurious experience, I think the Lucid's where to go. If you're looking for a super fast car.
Yeah, I think in terms of like performance, like horsepower to dollar value, I mean, I think Tesla's still king, right?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens when some of the Lucid technology in the Sapphire, for example, trickles down, so that
for 2024 to trickle down some of that technology into the GT.
Ah, interesting.
So it'll be interesting to see what they do with that.
Yeah. Because right now the Sapphire is a decent amount faster than the Plaid, but it also costs almost
3 times.
3 times as much.
Yeah.
Which is all right. Yeah, the regen is not nearly as strong on this car.
I forgot you do have to.
Yeah, my car just said, "Hey, idiot! By the way, you're about to rear end the car in front of you." Let's see. To summarize. The driving position, the position of the steering wheel, visibility out, and acceleration. I would give the nod to the Plaid. Pretty much everything else the Lucid is better at. There's more space inside the cabin. The back seat is way bigger. The Lucid was quieter, smoother, easier to be smooth. Had better regen braking if that's what you want. You can adjust that if it's not. The quality of the cabin is really nice and luxurious feeling in the Lucid, and definitely more austere here in the Plaid.
I agree with most of those points. I think the other thing is that I think Tesla also probably has the best infotainment. I've admittedly I'm just starting to get used to the Lucid one, but there are a few places where I've already noticed like there are extra clicks to get into something or get out of something. I noticed, for example, the HomeLink. HomeLink was always was something that I think Tesla has iterated multiple times to fix, right? I think first there was a button on the top, then they moved it to the bottom, then they moved it back to the top, and then they made it pop out. And I mean, it took a lot of time to get it right. But like Lucid's, one weird thing is when you're backing out of your garage, once you put the rear view camera on, it actually covers up the HomeLink icon.
Oh, jeez.
So you can't close your garage with the rear view camera with the car in reverse.
Oh, that's funny.
So you have to put the car back in park, then click on the HomeLink icon, then click on the garage door that you want to activate.
Wow.
So there are things like that like once you start using the product, you start to notice. So big nod to Tesla in regards to like mature software.
Yeah. And I will say the GPS enabled HomeLink control is actually really nice. So as soon as I get close to the garage, it opens up the garage, and when I leave, it closes it, and it works like 95% of the time. The other percent of the time, I have to check on my.
Is it still free on the Model S? I know on the Model 3 and Y you have to pay like a few $100s.
Yep. And it's actually dumb. You have to have a little piece of hardware installed by somebody. It's not just a software license to get it on the Model 3 and Model Y.